What's good, everybody? At least I hope the mic is working first time round this time. Normally, I get it right second time round, but I hope it's worked out. Hi, gang. Let me know if you're good. Let me know if I sound good. Forgive me in advance, by the way. I've got a lot of fluff in my hair. Turns out my bed sheets are kind of old. I need to get new ones. But it's been a bit all over the place there. But I need a haircut anyway, to be honest. I'm probably going to get that sorted out on Wednesday. But in the meantime, hello everybody. I hope you guys are doing good on this pleasant. Well, I say pleasant. It's disgustingly humid and hot in London. Monday late afternoon / evening, 7 PM here in the UK. Working well, yeah, excellent. I got it right first time this time, brilliant. It's still 30 degrees right now in the UK, so it's warm. I have a non-alcoholic beverage, some summer fruits juice from Lidl's. But I will sort myself out over the course of the next couple of hours or so. With you guys, of course. Being able to talk Grand Prix stuff and being able to talk just motorsport in general probably for the next 2-3 hours or so. You guys seem to really like it when I do these. I will absolutely try to do it more often. I just struggle to find the time, to be honest with you. I don't get very many evenings off. The day job has a lot of awkward 1 till 10 shifts. So by the time I get in from 10 and I'm setting up for an 11 PM stream, who's going to be around to watch? It's not ideal. But, yeah, we're trying to sort that out, basically. But hopefully, I've got some extra staff coming in the shop now, so hopefully I'll get some more evenings off soon, so I can actually maybe try and do these maybe once every other week or something like that, because they do well YouTube-wise. You guys seem to really, really like them. And I love doing them. I love interacting with you guys. It's part of the fun of why I'm on Twitter so damn much. I really should be trying to cut down on that, because it's a bit of a cesspool at the moment, but you try. So let me say hi to the chat. Daniel, hello, sir. Motorsport fanboy. I know I think that's you, Andrew. Good to see you, man. Colton, and it's live, my man. Good to see you. Scott, sounds good. Thanks, man. K Goins 97, thank you. A lot of comments on the Intershirt. Yeah, look. As soon as I saw it, I had to get it. Like, the snake skin, it's even better in person. Like, it looked good in the pictures. This is one of the best home shirts I've ever seen. Like, I don't care what people want to say about the new Inter badge. I know it's not as good as the old one, but I really don't think it's the deal breaker that a lot of people think it is. It's stunning. I mean, I got the Carco on the back as well. You can probably just about see that there. But it's a stunning shirt. It really is. Like, Nike outdid themselves with this one. The snakeskin is astonishing, to say the least. So I absolutely love it. I got it as soon as it was available. Being a Nike Plus member certainly helps. But hi, Katie. Good to see you. Your hair is not pink yet. About that, I did promise Stuart, who you probably better know as Chain Bear, that if he raised over 600 quid for the Trevor project in the month of June, I would dye my hair pink. The wax that I'm going to use for it, because I don't really want to damage my hair via bleach, I'm not a regular dyer, and I probably never will be. The wax for it, which is I think temporary, lasts about 3 or 4 days, or you can just wash it out straight away. It's on the way. It's coming from America, so it's going to take a little bit of a while to ship, but it's getting there. It's getting there. So, yeah, soon, hopefully, end of this week, maybe early next week at the latest. As soon as it happens, you will see. And if you can, please donate to the Trevor Project. That would be pretty awesome. They do an awful lot with the LGBT plus community and trying to prevent suicide amongst LGBT youth. They do a lot of very important work, so please, if you can, support the Trevor Project. That's the reason why I will dye my hair pink for the greater good. So look forward to that in the next week or so. We'll have to wait and see. Winchy, the Intershirt is god tier. Appreciate that. AG, nice shirt. Very good shirt. Would work fine for US ones. Hi, Ring, good to see you. Is that Intershirt better than United Zebra kit? Yes, I certainly think so. Anyway, Liam Talks Motorsport, good to see you, man. There's 35 of you in here already. Holy shit! Wow, that's crazy. Thank you very much, everybody. Much appreciated. I'm just actually gonna plug this on YouTube real quick because my God, I did not think we'd have 35 in here within 5 minutes of me going live. That's absolutely insane. Thank you. Forgive me for a second here. Whew. Crazy stuff. Thank you all, everybody, for tuning in. With fans, Dre, you should know this by now. Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't think that, even so, I didn't think there'd be this much of an early bump. I've had 37 live viewers right now, which is getting close to the highest I think we've ever had on this channel, which is crazy. So thank you, everyone that's tuned in. I'll try and get through as many chat messages as I can. I saw you got to meet Seb, Liam. I saw the picture. I'm extremely jealous of you. Nice one. I know Seb stuck around for several hours after the race had finished to clean up, which, honestly, a bit embarrassing that a 4-time Formula 1 world champion has to clean up a bunch of ignorant fans' mess. But here we are. You know, but no, I'm glad that, you know, a lot of people took pleasure in that, and I'm glad that a lot of people got to meet Seb and talk to him for a little while as a combined effort. That's pretty cool. But yeah, we'll you know, get into that in the nitty gritty. More on the chat. Hi Dom, good to see you. Hi Andrew. Poochie Head, good to see you, man. Long time no see. At Somewhere City. Do I know you from somewhere? I've not seen your username before. Let me know who you are. But so Dre, hope you're well. Thank you, man. I'm doing good. I can't lie. I'm doing all right. Back's a bit sore. I think I strained a muscle in my back a couple of days ago. But besides that, I'm actually not doing too bad. Can't complain. Evening, sir. Man, I can't wait to see Guru's. Guru's my barber. Me and Vic are both local. We have the same barber. I can't wait to see Guru's reaction with you with pink hair. God help us all. I don't think the world is ready for that, but we'll have to wait and see. Thai Pizza Lord, good to see you, man. All here for your takes on Silver. God bless you, Katie. You're such a cutie. Susanna, good to see you, my darling. Hope you're doing all right. God. Thanks to everybody that's come in early doors. I'm really grateful for that. So cheers to you guys. So I'm going to throw it out there to you guys, chat. What element of that Grand Prix do you want me to talk about first? If you've got a question about the race, or in motorsport in general, I'm going to prioritise Silverstone first, because that's kind of the name of the stream. But, you know, I will throw it to you guys for stuff you want me to talk about. You know me, it's I don't really have, like, major plans when it comes to this. But, you know, it's your show as much as it is mine. So, you know, let's get cracking for the next couple of hours or so. On Twitter, Bet. Pick is my dog and name like that. Yes, I have seen you before, Bet. Good to see you. Thank you for coming in. Much appreciated. I do remember that now. Thank you. I'm somehow 5,500 people follow me on Twitter. I don't understand why. So sometimes I don't forget people. So, you know, I do try and remember faces and whatnot, especially the ones that are regularly in the mentions. So let's get cracking. I see a couple of guys coming through. We love you, Dre. Thanks, Akeem. Love you too, buddy. Sprint race, yay or nay? I've seen a couple of guys mention the sprint race already. It was fine. Look, I don't have a... God, there's 44 of you in here. Holy crap. I think that's a new Motorsport 101 record. I really do think that is a... I can't remember a time we've had that many people watching along at once. Thank you all so much. If you guys could do me a favour, if you haven't already, please like the video. If you haven't subscribed, please do. The better this does, the more I will try to get more of these out. So if you haven't already, leave a like, subscribe. I'm getting the YouTube shit out of the way first. But you guys have asked about the sprint race. It was fine. I didn't have a major problem with it. Like, I don't think it was terrible by any stretch of the imagination. I thought it was exactly what it was. Given what I thought it was going to be going in, it played out exactly how I thought it would play out. Like, a couple of guys would have a good start and bounce their way up. I had a feeling some people would gamble on soft tyres. Valtteri Bottas, I know he did that. Fernando Alonso had a fantastic start and then was able to mostly hold on to the gains he made. I know the McLarens came past in the end, but I don't think there was enough of a difference between the sprint race we saw and the Grand Prix we got on Sunday in the end anyway. And that was my big problem with this. You've basically turned a 300-kilometre Grand Prix into a 400-kilometre Grand Prix with a mandatory red flag at the end of 1/4 distance. That's what it felt like. And my biggest problem with it as a format is that you've basically given part of your game away. I mentioned this on my Substack page for those guys who follow me on there. I tweeted about it. I said, look, the weekend format was never the problem with Formula 1 as a product at the moment. And the real smoking gun will be what these 2022 cars do in terms of raceability. So if you're looking at ways to artificially try and improve the sport, the weekend format's about all you've got left. And for me, if we'd have had the conventional weekend format with qualifying and Hamilton looking like he might have been faster over a lap, but Verstappen being better over long run pace, I think that would have been more intriguing going into Sunday than what we got. Because what we got was Verstappen proving that he had probably better long run pace on the sprint race. So you're going into Saturday night thinking, well, if shit goes down normally, you know, it looks like Verstappen has the upper hand. And you've already kind of spoiled a little bit of what Sunday's going to be about, unless you get shenanigans. And thankfully, in our case, we got shenanigans. But you can't bet on that every weekend. So, like I said, I don't think it was terrible by any stretch of the imagination. I just think it was predictable. Look, we're at 53. We're at 53. Oh, my God. You guys are incredible. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. I hope I'm not waffling on too much, but I know a couple of guys in the chat are saying it's pointless unless you reverse the grids. Well then what's the point of Friday qualifying then? Unless you're going to make points for pole position, like Formula E does, then what's the point of having a Friday qualifying session if the guy on pole is just going to end up starting 8th, 9th or 10th in the race? Especially given we know these cars can't pass each other. Like, you're going to end up with what Q3 was like in 2012, when if guys limped into Q3 at the back of that field, they wouldn't even bother running in Q3 because they wanted to save a pair of tyres for the race. So, it kind of made Q3 like a 7-car showdown sometimes. I remember seeing Grand Prix where guys would not even bother running in Q3 because they would rather take the extra pair of soft tyres for the race and start 8th, 9th or 10th. So what was the point? So, you know, it's... I don't get what reversing the grid for the sprint race will do. Because whoever qualifies in 8th, 9th or 10th will probably end up winning. Unless the deltas are that... unless the deltas are really, really small, then what's the point? You know? So, surely you wouldn't have a Friday qualifying, though. Would it be reverse championship order? Well, then why are you getting rid of one of the best parts of the weekend? Like, that qualifying session on Friday was superb. I've said it time and time again. 50 to 60% of the time in Formula 1, at least in my opinion, qualifying conventionally is the best part of the weekend. It's high octane, it's high pace, you'll have a bunch of dudes coming over the line, jumbling up the order, and you don't quite know who's going to get knocked out till right at the end. I love the free format qualifying that we've got right now, and I thought it was one of those things you shouldn't really mess with, because it's a genuinely excellent part of the format. But, you know, I don't see, like... I don't see how this makes it better. You know what I mean? Yeah. Miles, I can't disagree with you there. Reversing the grid won't do anything. F1 is obsessed with increasing entertainment. Yeah. The problem is, and I mentioned this in the Substack, it all boils down to the same thing. It all boils down to the end game that is, these cars can't race each other. And that's the biggest problem you've got with your series. Most tracks you need a 1 to 1.5 second a lap delta to overtake somebody. And that's going to be your biggest problem going forward. Like, if you can't race each other, it doesn't matter what format you have, you're inevitably going to circle around this same problem. So, having a 25 or 33% distance sprint race is not going to solve that problem. It's just going to, if anything, spoil a good chunk of what could happen on Sunday. So I don't see what the overall end game here is. I don't think it was more or less entertaining. I mean, okay, it's better than having 3 practice sessions, but saying you're better than a practice session really doesn't count for much, because I don't get why anybody watches a practice session. They are all boring and they stink. All I've got to do is look at the timesheet. I don't need to see the cars on track on a Friday. I've said it in the Substack as well. Go to a 2-day weekend. Have 1 2-hour practice session on Saturday morning and call it quits. Go into parc fermé conditions after that, as far as I'm concerned. It saves 23 days of workload for the teams. People will still pay money for weekend tickets, and I don't see the point of Friday. Not as many people watch the Junior Series as they pretend to do on Twitter. You know? At least that's what I think, anyway. Thanks for great content. Thanks, Akeem. Hi, Jasmine. Good to see you, darling. Looking forward to my birthday later. I hope I get to see you soon. Jasmine's one of my best mates. Lives local. Bless her. I love her to pieces. Points allocation. I guess you've got to incentivize the whole point of trying to win a 17-lap race. If you're going to do it, I think, in my opinion, if you're going to do a sprint race, that's 1/3 race distance, you need to be giving out more than 3 points. Like, Verstappen beat Hamilton and gained a grand total of 1 point on him. You get 25 for a 300-kilometre Grand Prix win, and you only get 3 for a 1/3 race distance result. If you're going to give it points, maybe do it to the old scoring system, or maybe borrow what Formula 2 and 3 does with its scoring system, where it's 15 for a win. And you go down to 8th place on points. I think it's 15, 12, 10, something like that. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. But I think just going 3, 2, and 1 for top 3 is redundant. I guess they don't want the championship to be settled on a Saturday, but that's just math. Sometimes that shit happens. You can't help it. again, I don't have a massive problem with the points because they're so small it almost doesn't matter. Like you know, it's one of those things. Just checking the comments here. He's one of your phrases. Dre, the sprint race not qualifying was a nothing burger and just prolonged the race by 24 hours. It spoiled a little bit of what Sunday would have been. Yeah, thankfully, we didn't have Max, and we actually got a decent Grand Prix in the end out of it anyway, but it wasn't because of the sprint. It wasn't because of the sprint. You know, the sprint had nothing to do with how entertaining that race ended up being in the end. The front two would have been the front two whatever happened, so what difference did it really make, you know? Can't race anyway, fear of a penalty. Yeah, there's no money in that, Dre, and the FIA's money. Yeah, I can't argue with you that on that one bet. Can't argue with that at all. Someone who was there, quality on the Friday meant we could go in the grandstand at Beckett's, or it was dubbed Russell Grandstand. The man was so popular that weekend, you might as well have been running for Prime Minister. I'm not surprised at that one at all. Yeah, the most stupid aspect of the whole thing is winner of quality. Yeah, look, I can't, like, yeah, Kyle in there saying the most stupid aspect of it was winner of quality not getting pole. Look, Nico Rosberg said the same thing, and people on Twitter were actually trying to, well, actually, Nico Rosberg, and I'm just like, it's laughable. How does the winner of a sprint race get qualify on pole? As far as I'm concerned, you're changing the definition of pole position, because I always consider pole position to be who was the fastest around one lap of a track. That's all I've ever remembered it being, as far as I'm concerned. So to change the definition of that to person who wins sprint race is silly. It's exactly the same as what, and this is me being obscure here. If anyone's a World Superbikes fan, about 3 years ago when they changed the format, where they were going to have 3 races over a weekend, and they were going to have the Super Pole race, where it was a 10-lap sprint race, where the winner of that 10-lap sprint race would start on pole for race 3 on the Sunday, because you'd have race 1 on the Saturday, you'd have the Super Pole race on Sunday morning, and then race 2 in the afternoon. And World Superbikes didn't consider the Super Pole win as a win. Everybody hated it, and then Dorna changed their minds and made it, oh yeah, okay, they count now. And that's how Jonathan Rea now has, I think, 102, I want to say? 101 World Superbike wins. You know, so, like, it's not the first series that's tried to change the definition of what constitutes a win, because World Superbikes tried the exact same thing about 3 years ago, and it didn't work there either. Like, all of a sudden, their Super Bowl wins didn't count, and then all of a sudden, they did count, and then Jonathan Rea's win count went up by about 15 all at once. It was silly. No, for me, whoever qualifies on pole on Friday gets deemed pole position as far as I'm concerned, because they seem to be desperate not to call the sprint race a race. It's a race by every definition. So I don't understand why they seem to be insistent on not calling something exactly what it is. But they're going to try it again. I think it's going to be at Monza next. I don't know when the third one's going to be, because it was originally apparently meant to be Canada. But we're not racing in Canada now this year, so we'll have to wait and see. They might have to end up tweaking the format already. Unfortunately, I don't think it was shit on enough on Twitter for people to call it a failure. I said it on Twitter before, like, a tie or high engagement with people not sure is as good as a win for the FIA, because that means they'll keep trying it, because they think there's something there. The only way people were going to not endorse, like the FIA was not going to call this a success, was if it got universally shit on from a great height, like they did with elimination qualifying a couple of years ago. Like that, everybody disliked it because it was dumb and stupid and it didn't work. You can't have a rolling elimination clock when tyres are only good for 1 lap. It was the stupidest idea the FIA ever came out with. You know, so that was the only way it was going to get canned. So they'll try it again. Most definitely they'll try it again. I'm all for immediately cancelling it so that Lewis is the only Speed King in F1 history. Speed King. That's the best they could come up with. The Pirelli Speed King Award. The marketing department should be fired and they should start over. We've cracked 60 viewers! 60! My God! Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Again, hit the like button if you haven't already. Thank you. Support, all that good stuff. Thank you all so much. I'm very, very grateful for that. Again, just checking the comments. It's like they went to the F2 rules and regulations and forgot F2 doesn't count the sprints as quali. Very true. Pucci, is that the new winter kit? Yes, it is. It is the brand new winter kit. Charles saying, I guess after this weekend, neither Robert nor Theo will get the F2 title. Charlie, you don't want that as bad as you think. In my humble opinion, Formula 2 is a mess this year, and the new format is killing that series. That's my hot take of the weekend, honestly. Like, having the 3-race format in Formula 2, I can't stand. It's too random. You have a 3-race weekend where you qualify, but 2 of the races have reversed grids. I know that Formula 2 and Formula 3 are really, really scared of one person running away with the series, but the whole thing just seems too contrived. Like, it's so I don't like the 3-race weekend format that Formula 2's got going on right now. And yeah, as Mar said, overall, the weekend format is not an issue for Formula 1 at all. And yeah, as Marlene points out, hi Marlene in the comments, saying that, yeah, Formula 2 doesn't race again now till September. Because all their rounds are at the end of the year. Because I think they've got Abu Dhabi, they've got Saudi Arabia. Like, Formula 2 got the shit end of the junior stick this year. That it got all the crappy rounds at the end of the year that no one's really excited for. Is anybody excited for a season finale in Abu Dhabi and a race in Saudi Arabia? A brand new track which doesn't look particularly pleasing. And now we got to wait another 2 months before we get a Formula 2 race again? Like, the intrigue in this series right now is at an all-time low, as far as I'm concerned. And there is a good chance that no one makes it out of Formula 2 next year. And that'll be a discussion for a different day, because I know people are going to ask about stuff. Come on, Dre, that's not your only hot take for the evening. Well, it depends on what people think of everything else that I'm going to say. We'll have to wait and see. I don't know if that was just a bad round for Formula 2, because, like, it was a DRS stalemate weekend in Formula 2 this year. Like, it was very hard for people to pass each other. And that just didn't help at all. So, you know, there's issues with Formula 2. There's issues with the entire junior ladder in general. And going to 3 races a weekend to try and, again, artificially create more entertainment because the overall calendar was smaller, it's not helped. You've made the whole thing too random, in my opinion. Like, does it honestly feel like Robert Schwartzman's the second best driver in the field this season? I'm not sure. Honestly, I would not be able to sit here with a clear conscience and tell you who's been the standout guys in Formula 2 this year, because the whole field is all over the place. It's a mess, to say the least. Yeah, stopped watching them this year. See, I'm glad I'm not the only one thinking this with Formula 2 and Formula 3, because, like I said, I think the format's a mess. And I agree with you, Funnel, that yeah, it was absolutely to cut costs. They wanted to make the whole thing cheaper, but it hasn't. Like, Richard Verschoor, who won his first Formula 2 race this weekend, is literally racing hand to mouth. Like, he's on a rolling 1 race at a time contract. Do you know how embarrassing that is, that a guy that's won a Grand Prix might not be here next time we race? It's humiliating. Because you need $2 million a year to race in Formula 2, and you can't make it a long-term career. It's not viable to stick around in Formula 2 for years at a time. It's not like when it comes to like bike racing, for example, where even if you don't get to MotoGP, you can make enough money in the intermediate class. You know, if you're good enough, like a Thomas Luthi, you can be a gatekeeper in that series and still make decent money. Or you can hop over to World Superbikes. In the juniors, you don't get that luxury. Because there's always someone younger and hungrier that can buy your seat out in a heartbeat, because it's all dependent on funding. And I agree with Miles as well, because there's not going to be a lot of guys that are moving up this year. We were spoiled. We've been spoiled for driver talent. Like, it is a hornet's nest if you're under the age of 25 right now. Norris, Verstappen, Leclerc, Russell, you know, Albon was in and out in 2 years. Like, what are you gonna do? Like Alpine have got a very talented academy and no seats to promote anybody. Guan Yu Zhou is leading the championship right now, but he has no chance of being in Formula 1 next year with Alpine, because Alonso's got another year of his contract left, and Ocon's now on a 3-year deal. What's the point? Like, unless they can cut a deal with somebody else and buy out somebody else's seat, then what's the point, you know? It's a mess. It is an absolute mess right now, you know? Harry H, do you think F1 could work with a Formula E style of quali? I think it easily could. Formula E's biggest problem is that their tracks are too small to have all 20 cars out there at once. That's why they split them in groups. Like, I think it could work, but I also think, again, those in Group 4 would have a massive advantage because the track's more rubbered in, and they would get to go last. And it would probably be quite boring to watch, only having 6 cars on track at a time. Like, I don't mind one-shot qualifying, but it's boring, in my opinion. Like, I never liked it when it was one-shot, so, you know. We'll have to wait and see. Yeah, F2, F3 needs to take a leaf out of the road of Indy Series when it comes to funding. Completely agreed. Other drivers buying the seats out means there was much more movement in the grid as in the... Yeah, just like Formula E was in the early days, yeah. Gotta check. We need early funding to... We need to justify the capital they put in early doors. Buy the seat out, you know. Quick one... Yeah, Formula E qualifying generally works for the sport itself, but I still can't... I can't stand the fact that Group 1 is a death sentence. Like, they have... Like, that's the issue I've got with Formula E qualifying more than anything else. Thai Pizza Lord, did you like the 2022 car and livery reveal? Livery doesn't really matter. Like, you know, they had to make it look fancy for the big presentation, so they're not going to just stick it in... They're not going to put a generic black livery on it and have done with it. Yeah, the car itself... Look, I'm not Sam Collins. I'm not a tech expert, so I can't sit here and tell you from a technical standpoint how effective it's going to be. I can see what they're trying to do. Those wings are ridiculous. It looks like a snowplow on the front of the cars. The new wings are silly, in my opinion. I think they look ridiculous. I think it looks something like IndyCar looks like at the moment, overall. But if it promotes better racing, I don't give a shit what it looks like. So I sincerely hope they've got it right. If they've got it right, and the cars are able to... pardon me. If the cars are able to follow each other, I don't give a shit if it's ugly. Like, no one will care about how these cars look if they can race each other. I don't hold out a lot of hope, I must admit. But I can only pray. But it's not a looker. At all, to say the least. But, yeah. Okay. What next do you want me to talk about from this weekend? I think some of you guys mentioned Helmut Marko and Christian Horner's comments. But if there's anything else you guys want me to get in there regarding the weekend, let me know in the chat. Drop them in. I am looking at it right now. But still 60 of you in here, which is incredible. Thank you all so much. It's unbelievable. This is good. This is by a country mile the most watched Hangout we've ever done, and I'm very grateful for that. Thank you. Having FR 3.5 used to be a nice release valve. Yeah, until the FIA decided that it wasn't worth the super license points anymore. Killed the series in one fell swoop. Okay, I thought this weird group ritual with the all the drivers around the new car looked kind of funny. It did look kind of funny, especially because they seemed equal party confused and disinterested in interviews. Yeah, it looked that way. Have we talked about how awesome Seb is yet? Off the track, most definitely. Not this weekend on the track, but let's have a quick look. I'll save the crash for a little bit later. I'll get to that, I promise. Thoughts on Bottas finishing behind the Ferrari? Yeah, in fact, tag the username so I can see it a bit easier, like James and Fanboy have done. That would certainly help. Thank you, because I've got a much busier chat than I normally do. Thoughts on Bottas finishing behind the Ferrari and nearly a McLaren despite having a free shot at the win. This is who he is, guys. Like we have learned nothing about Valtteri Bottas that we didn't already know. He is not on Hamilton's level. He is not on Verstappen's level. On a good day, he will finish in third. I don't think it was about Bottas being bad this weekend. I think it was more about more about Charles Leclerc being outstanding. That was the single best drive I've seen this season. Leclerc was phenomenal. In every way, shape and form, he took advantage of every mistake, every error, climbed up the field and was 2 laps away from victory. That was a sensational performance from Charles Leclerc. He's still rough around the edges like on lap 1s and whatnot, but if he keeps his nose dry, he is a sensational driver. He is on the level of, he's right on the door of that elite tier, I think, of Hamilton, Verstappen, and, you could maybe chuck someone like Daniel Ricciardo in there, based off of last year. Leclerc this was not a win lost for Leclerc, it was a second place gained. He's that good. So comparing it to Valtteri, we've given up on him. I said it on Twitter to a couple of mates, and I stand by this now. It's over for Valtteri. This is who he is. He's not good enough to be anything more than a semi-reliable backup to Hamilton. The signs were already started to show last year, but to be fair, the Mercs was better, relatively speaking, last year compared to the rest of the field. It isn't this year. They need... But again, I don't want to be too harsh on Valtteri, because at the same time, he's still ahead of Perez on points right now. Perez had another disastrous weekend. So for all the shit we give Valtteri Bottas, he's still doing better than Sergio Perez right now. Perez, again, has had the big upside, the podium finishes, the win in Baku, that he really did luck into on the day, but let's not talk about that. So for all the shit we give Valtteri, Sergio Perez is in a better car and I think 5 points behind him. So, swings and roundabouts, I say. So, look, I think we as an audience have gotten bored with Valtteri, and I think we just want someone else in that seat now. They want a Hamilton threat. They badly, badly want a Hamilton threat. We as a casual audience, we want Rosberg 2. And Valtteri Bottas was never Rosberg 2. He's never been Rosberg 2. And as a result, he's just become another number 2 driver And in a sport where really we've never had a situation in this turbo hybrid era where there's more than 4 winnable cars over the course of a season, if Valtteri Bottas, who's only won 9 times, is in one of those 4 seats, it's not going to move the needle for anybody. You know? So, I call it Pedroseritis. If anyone knows MotoGP, and anybody knows what happened towards the end of Dani Pedrosa's career, like, it's exactly the same principle. Once Marquez arrived, and once Marquez started beating Pedrosa on a regular basis, people wanted a Marquez stopper. So, like, everyone was like, let's take Dani Pedrosa's seat. And then the moment they got rid of Pedrosa for Jorge Lorenzo, what happened? Honda started struggling. Marquez was riding through all of its problems. Everybody else on the Honda was doing dog shit. Because they did not realise that Pedrosa was a key part of the bike's development. He was a great baseline for Honda. And look what's happened. He goes to KTM, and KTM are now winning races. It's not a coincidence. It's the same principle with Valtteri. People are fed up with him, and they just want someone else that can challenge Hamilton. And honestly, if you're a George Russell fan, I don't think you want this as bad as you think. Because if Russell's going from a questionable Williams to possibly the best seat in the sport. And he's competing against Lewis Hamilton for 2 years. If Russell gets his dick flattened by Hamilton over that 2-year period, what are we going to say about George Russell then? Because the one iconic race we had from Russell in that Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton was not in. He beat Valtteri, and if half the internet is telling me that Valtteri sucks, then how good is it that Russell is beating him really? We don't know how good Russell is. That's the biggest problem about Russell and where he's at in his F1 career. It's all one big question mark. That's the problem that I've got with Russell. It's not that he's not good. I think he probably is good. But we just don't know. It's such a massive gamble for someone like Russell that he could be driving straight into a brick wall for all we know. And if he doesn't work out at Mercedes as the number 2 that they want him to be, given that Red Bull looked like a genuine threat, are people going to turn on him? I don't know. That's Mercedes' problem. Bottas, we know what Bottas is as a known quantity. He's a decent number 2 who can win on a good day. But he's not on his level. He's not on Hamilton or Verstappen's level, and that's ultimately going to be a problem. Getting rid of him for George Russell, there's no guarantee that Russell's going to be better. That's the problem. I wish there was a better midfield seat for Mercedes to put him in. The problem is that Mercs have been really bad at forming relationships with the rest of the grid. Ferrari has outlets. They have Haas and potentially Alfa Romeo, right? Like, until last year, Renault had an outlet. Like, Red Bull has its second team. You know, so they have ways of better evaluating talent than Mercedes do. And Mercedes not having a viable second team has come back to bite them, because that's how they lost Pascal Wehrlein, and that's how they lost Esteban Ocon. Guys that were probably good drivers, but we will never know how good they truly were because they were driven out of the sport due to lack of opportunity. Ocon has come back under Renault's brand, but Mercedes never gave him a fair shake. The only chance he ever got with them was a brief run at Renault the first time round and driving for Romana, which was irrelevant because they were uncompetitive relative to the field. So if you're Mercs, you've kind of already shot yourself in the foot, because now the only easy workaround if you want to promote George Russell is lifting them up from a mediocre Williams. So what can you do? I know he's got nothing more to prove at Williams, but Williams are still the 9th or 10th best team in the field. You're putting him in the number 1 team in the sport. That's your problem. You've left the door open for him to get curb stomped. And no, he's not going to end up at Aston Martin either. The boss's son is on the payroll and Sebastian Vettel's on a 3-year deal. There's no movement there in Aston Martin as far as I'm concerned. So Mercs have shot themselves in the leg. Their poor negotiating skills cost them dearly years ago. So now George Russell's been so good relative to Williams and relative to Nicholas Latifi, he's put them in an unwinnable situation. So if they bring him up, it's a huge punt. And there's not very many ways that Russell can look good in that Mercedes. Because he's got Lewis Hamilton alongside him. That could be the problem. So, it's a lot. It is. Mercs, if they were truly serious about their academy, Mercs could have bought out a second team, but Mercs are never going to spend that sort of money and that sort of operating costs just to promote their talent up. Because Mercs already had one foot out the door as it is. Okay. Russell should be replacing Hamilton, not Bottas. Nope, because Hamilton signed a 2-year deal. Okay. Let's check on the chat. George is out racing his car so hard. Yeah. Completely agree, Kylan. If Russell had a viable midfield seat, that would be an excellent way of determining just how good he is. Unfortunately, Williams is not a midfield team, and the only way is right to the top. And that is going to be a problem. Yes, give us more Nico Rosberg. How much would Albon be crucified if he had Perez's performance? He'd be slaughtered. Because people never really believed in Albon in the first place. And to be fair, it's not Albon's fault. It was too much too soon for the kid. He had 12 career Grand Prix, and they thought, okay, you've had 12 career Grand Prix, let's see you be a viable matchup against Max Verstappen, who you could make an argument is the best driver in the world right now. What did Red Bull think was going to happen? Honestly. Do you think next year with the cap, Williams going to have a proper midfield car? Maybe. Maybe. I don't know. It's hard to say with what everybody else is doing. The goalposts keep moving, but the sport is doing more to help the cars at the bottom of the leaderboard, so that will certainly help. It also helps with how much Dornington Capital is going to put into that Williams team going forward. Like, we don't know how much, as owners, they're going to put in the kitty to help out, so we'll have to wait and see. Perez isn't slaughtered because Max is leading the championship and that's all they care about. Yeah. Because Red Bull lead the constructors and that's all that matters. Look, the drivers is a bonus to Red Bull. The constructors championship is the one that pays money. Don't ever forget that about this sport. The drivers championship is less important to an F1 team than the constructors. The constructors pays the money. Don't forget that. Hear me out. What Merck should do, but won't, is pay McLaren to take George, take Ricciardo off their hands, and stick Dan alongside Lewis. That's a very expensive contract. You'd have to be spending something north of over 20 million quid to buy out Ricciardo's contract. That's a lot of money, and that comes out of your cap. Is that guy worth 20 million of your cap space? I don't know. Okay, I got distracted a little bit there. Back to Silverstone. Is it time I talk about the big one? Tag me in the chat. What's next regarding Silverstone? I got a bit distracted talking about George Russell and Sergio Perez. And yeah, Ricciardo's on a 3-year deal. Driver contracts don't come out of the budget cap yet, Daniel, but they do in 2023? 2023, just to ask out of the way. Did Red Bull not sacrifice Perez potential points to simply steal the fastest lap point in Hammy? I think Perez was 1 in 12th when they boxed him for the fastest lap attempt, so I don't think it would have mattered. It's still 1 less point for Mercedes. So, you know. We're almost an hour in. Maybe a good time now, almost an hour into the Hangout. That's a fair point. That's a fair point. We're almost an hour in already. Okay. The Hamilton-Verstappen incident itself. I will cut to the chase on this one. I think the stewards just about got it right. It was in 10th. So, it's a fair trade, in other words. Okay. Thanks for the clarification on the Perez one, guys. Appreciate that. Yeah. Overall, regarding Hamilton v Verstappen, I think the stewards just about got it right, in my opinion. I hope you were not hoping for a spicy or hot take, because if you are, then sorry to disappoint you. But overall, I didn't have too many problems with the call. I'll be honest, if you followed me on Twitter during the race yesterday, I said, as it happened, I felt like it should have been a drive-through penalty for Hamilton, given the nature of the corner, given that it's not like in Austria where we're talking about a gravel trap and a 50-mile-an-hour right-hander. This is a 180-mile-an-hour corner you're taking virtually flat out in these cars. Causing an incident there. I think it's marginal in terms of blame, but I think Hamilton took a lunge, and I don't think he was going to make that corner. I don't think he missed the apex entirely. I don't think he was going to make the corner. I think it was a desperation heave, is what my honest opinion is. And of course, I think the fact that there was contact, the fact that Verstappen went flying off into the wall at 50 Gs and over 150 was probably what made it look worse than what it actually was. I think, in hindsight, given that I've seen the incident about 50 times now, and that there was a level of mitigation in that Hamilton did have a car alongside at a certain point, I can understand why he might think he had a claim to the corner. I think that's why the stewards came down to 10 seconds. So I think, for me, I've not got a massive problem with it overall. Like, the unfortunate nature of it was that a lot of that penalty was isolated in the end because the guys around Lewis Hamilton had slow pit stops, and the fact that, look, Hamilton's race was saved by the red flag. Mercedes admitted it this morning. They would have retired the car if it wasn't for the red flag, because they would not have been able to get him going in time if the race had continued under a safety car. Like, the fact that Verstappen hit the wall like he did, as cruel as it might sound, saved Hamilton's race. So, you know, I can certainly see the argument that some of you guys in the chat are saying that it was a racing incident. I can certainly see an argument for that. That's why I'm not mad about it only being a 10-second penalty. Like, I think there's enough mitigation there to reduce the penalty. Like, so for me, I'm like 65-35 in terms of blame towards Lewis. I think Karun Chandhok's breakdown of the incident, if you've not seen it on Sky F1, I think is required viewing. And I think the line that stuck out to me most during that review was where he said both drivers could have done more to avoid that incident. And I think that's absolutely a valid comment. It was a hard incident, but I also think Hamilton took a lunge he probably shouldn't have done. You know? And of course, because of how it played out and how the race played out in the end, because Hamilton would go on to win, it makes people feel like they've not really had justice served, because obviously Hamilton served his penalty and then went on to win. You know, Miles saying, I just don't think it would have been a penalty had it not been pivotal to the championship. Maybe. I don't know how these stewards think. I'd love to have been a fly on the wall during that conversation. If anything, the politics between Toto Wolff and Christian Horner and Jonathan on the FIA radio and then Toto storming off to the steward's office was hilarious, because it was pure politics. It was pure, like, Randall out of... I joked it was like Randall out of recess. The fact that Toto was literally sending an email during the race, I thought was hilarious. It was peak drama, and if you're a sports fan, it's fantastic viewing. It was compelling. It was fantastic. Look, we in F1 have been desperate for a blood feud for years, and we finally might have one, and everyone is out here throwing insults at each other and being racist on social media. We don't deserve nice things as an audience. Like, we do not deserve nice things. We are dicks on the internet. Like, we were too busy throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks to relish the fact that we might actually have a compelling title fight between two guys that I don't think genuinely like each other all that much. This is the narrative feud we've all wanted. This is the Drive to Survive reality TV story that we've all been waiting for, and we fucking ruined it for ourselves because it got ugly so goddamn quick after that race. And don't get me wrong, I'll get to Red Bull's comments about this in a minute, but we do not deserve nice things. We are fucking terrible. Like, Miles is spot on. It was peak Jose Mourinho, Arsene Wenger. Peak football manager feud right there. It was gold. It was peak entertainment. I was out here quoting Eminem's Stan on Twitter. It was hilarious. Like, and of course, that's what makes it doubly frustrating how the aftermath went and how toxic it all got. Because the first half an hour was funny as fuck. It was hilarious. And of course, it all went south because we take these sports fandoms too goddamn seriously. It's so frustrating. Like, so that's the most frustrating thing of all this. If you look at it in a vacuum, I didn't actually have all that much wrong with that incident. I think 10 seconds was a valid penalty. I don't think too many people were like, oh, that's bullshit. It was like, it should have been a disqualification. Like, I think once people calmed down and saw the replays, they were like, okay, there's an argument you can make either way. The guys in the chat right now, I think, are pretty much saying what I was thinking. It was like, yeah, 10 seconds. Okay, fair enough. Max didn't make the flag. Max was out of the race. I think they tried to balance the books by giving Hamilton a penalty. Everyone's just like, yeah. Sounds about right, you know? But of course, it's everything outside of that zone which has just made the whole thing so much worse. And I've said it before, welcome to the reality TV era of Formula 1 and Formula 1 fandom as a sport. I don't think a lot of the hardcore fans were ready for this, but this is what it is now. This is how it's gonna be. This is like watching The Hills. Or watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians, where the situations are exaggerated for entertainment's sake. It's like watching Big Brother all over again. This is what a lot of people that came into the sport... Look, the amount of influencers that watched this race and talked about it like Rotashaw, like Willen, Chris Dixon, like Zerka. Like, the amount of guys that are new viewers that have come into F1 and how Drive to Survive has brought them on board. This was the golden nugget. This is the flashpoint we were all waiting for. And it's been fucking ruined. I can't stand it. It's so infuriating because we had a golden goose right in front of us. But of course we had to go too far and now everybody looks stupid. It's probably why there's 62 of you in here watching this right now. Like... Yeah, I think you're right, Susanna. I think the fact that Lewis won the race despite all of that was probably the reason why a lot of people got mad. The Red Bull comments did not help, but it's easy to forget that Hamilton is still driving a car that is way better than anything else on paper. His only competition was a 3rd/4th fastest debatable Ferrari. That was his only competition outside of his teammate, and they gave his teammate a team order to get out the way. Like, the only man that could have beaten Hamilton on paper on the day, he put in the wall. It's kind of unavoidable, unfortunately. And that's what made everything so frustrating, because nobody felt good about that win. I think even, unless you're one of the biggest hardcore Hamilton nut huggers on Twitter, that win couldn't have felt good. Like, your main competition was in a hospital wing, albeit briefly, and to be honest, that element of it has been greatly exaggerated. It was a checkup for a man that was winded and largely okay, right? I think that has been completely blown out of proportion, right? And, like, that was Hamilton's #1 threat. Everybody else, outside of his teammate and Sergio Perez, who was irrelevant in this weekend anyway because of his sprint race crash, were out of the running. So, like, unless you're the biggest Hamilton nut hugger in the world, that win couldn't have felt good. It was as jammy a win as you could possibly get. Every circumstance that had to fall into place for Hamilton to win this race happened. Norris had a slow stop. Leclerc's pace on hard tyres wasn't great. His main rival was in the wall. Perez was not a factor. Bottas was slow. And the red flag saved his car from being pulled in to retire. Every jammy thing that could have happened to Hamilton on the day happened. And it's arguably the second time this season Hamilton's had that happen because of what happened at Imola. Imola was the exact same scenario. Hamilton makes a mistake. Very shortly afterwards, there's a red flag. They got time to fix the car. And in dry weather trim, the Mercs is faster than anything not named Max. So of course Hamilton came up and finished in second. Despite driving sloppy, he still finished in second. So in the eyes of the neutral, justice wasn't served. And I think that's why people got mad about it. I think that's... And don't get me wrong, people were probably already mad about it. And then... fucking Max Verstappen's PR department took the retirement personally. And Katie, I do agree with you. I think if Lando Norris didn't have the slow pit stop, I think he would have certainly been a contender. But again, I think Hamilton's pace on hard tyres was insane. The Ferrari is not a complete turntable, and he was 1.1 seconds a lap faster. How do you compete with that? Like... I'll get to the Red Bull comments in a minute, I promise. But... yeah, like... I think that was also a big contribution as to what made this post-race so toxic. Was that people didn't feel like justice had been served. And Hamilton, by all accounts, got lucky. Got extremely goddamn lucky. You know, he's put a man in the wall and he's got on to win, and he was not the fastest man this weekend on paper, and he's gained 24 points on Verstappen, and it's basically a new championship. It's going to piss off a lot of people, because in their eyes, Hamilton probably didn't deserve that one on paper, but that's sport. Yeah, I'll let you in on a little secret here, folks. I'll let you in on a little secret. We don't like to admit it, but luck has a bigger element in sport than we like to give credit for. We don't like admitting it. We like the narrative that the guys in the car do all the hard work, and at the end, the right guy wins. We like that story. It makes us feel good about what we're watching. But sometimes luck plays an element in it. We just don't like that sometimes. Like, if anyone's ever watched the Cricket World Cup final from 2019, Ben Stokes doesn't have his heroic moment if that ball fielded during the last over of the match bounces off the front of his bat on a dive for 2, goes to the boundary rope for 4 extra overthrows, and was scored incorrectly. That's just luck sometimes. If Kane Williamson's okay with that, then I'm okay with that. For you cricket fans out there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, and Susanna's spot on. Merckx admitted this morning that they would have retired Hamilton's car if it wasn't for the red flag. The red flag saved him. He was not going to win this race if it wasn't for the red flag. Fact. But that's sport sometimes. Sometimes you get lucky. Is it just me, or is Lewis this year reminding me of Vettel in 2018? I think you're spot on, Scott. I think you're spot on. I think Red Bull has been the slightly faster car for most of the year. Shout out to Cam Buckley. The man was spot on. Like, he did a season preview. He called it. He said he thought Red Bull was going to be fastest out of the box. He's probably been right the whole way through. And I think if you look at it from a pure driving standpoint, and I'm going to whisper this, I think Verstappen's been better than Hamilton this year. Don't get me wrong, Verstappen probably has a slightly bigger margin for error because his car's a little bit quicker. But it's hard not to argue that in the heat of battle, through most of the year, the man that's given a little bit of error here and there has been Hamilton. Imola, Baku was a golden chance that he blew by hitting the magic button on his wheel. You know? Baku was jammy. The strategy department let him down in France, and they probably let him down in Monaco as well without realising the overrun. You know? And now this race weekend where Hamilton, even if you want to ignore the Grand Prix, he still coughed up pole position in the sprint race due to a bad start. Like, Hamilton has looked a bit more human. Max, if you really want to boil down his errors, the most you could probably say is the track limits early doors, i.e. Bahrain, the first round of the year, where he could have won that race, but then put 4 wheels off. And then probably Portimao, where he coughed up a point for fastest lap because of track limits. That's really about as far as I can go on Verstappen errors. Like, Hamilton has not been his best this year. No matter which way you slice it, he is certainly... Comparing him to Max on a pure driving level, Hamilton has fumbled the bag 2 or 3 times this season already. He's very, very lucky he's only 8 points behind Max, because Max has been better this year than him. Even if you want to ignore how good the cars have been, relatively speaking. Because, let's be honest, no one was talking about Hamilton's car being overpowered last year. We were too busy reveling in his greatness and talking about, oh, he's got 92 wins now, he's going to get 100 pole positions, you know, he's going to break every record in the book. No one wanted to... When people mentioned his car, you were carpet bombed on Twitter. I was literally accused of being... I've had co-hosts be labelled as racist because they wanted to acknowledge that the W11 was a completely busted car. One of the best Merckx has ever produced. A car that won Hamilton won 11 out of the 16 races he took part in that season. That was one of the best Hamilton seasons ever. Completely curb-stomped the field. This year, no one has seen this Red Bull threat coming apart from a couple of pundits. And I think that Hamilton is going through what Vettel did in 2018. Maybe not the outright howler, unless maybe you want to count Baku. It was such a freak instance that I almost don't really want to consider it like a major Hamilton mistake. But it's a Hamilton mistake. There was a driver error. There's no real ifs or buts about it. I think going at the Mercs is probably a little bit worse than the Red Bull on paper. I think it's leading to Hamilton overdriving a little bit. And when you overdrive, it opens the door for errors. Let's be honest, Hamilton was not really threatened last year. He wasn't really threatened in 2019 either. Not really. Not over the course of the season. This year, he's had a genuine threat, and he's made mistakes. And that's okay. Look, I talk from the Sebastian Vettel fan club. I know exactly how shit that can feel sometimes. I have empathy for Lewis, because, like, his golden goose era looks like it might be coming to an end. Even though this was a brilliant weekend for Mercs on points alone, the sprint race would still give me cause for concern, because it's pretty obvious that Red Bull had the faster car this weekend. Certainly in race trim. So, that would still be reason to be nervous if you're Mercedes, because in the sprint race, Verstappen was ahead of Hamilton comfortably. He made that sprint race win look easy. But we never got what happened in Grand Prix trim, because obviously Verstappen's race ended in 30 seconds. And you'd be pretty... I don't think a lot of people were calling that Verstappen's error on that, at Cops. I think it was either racing incident or blaming Hamilton. I don't think a lot of people are out here like, oh, Verstappen turned in on him. That was like an outsider take, from what I've seen on social media anyway. K. Goins. Do I know you from somewhere, K. Goins? Because he got a lot of good shit. Hamilton is desperate from the pressure from Red Bull's pace and Max's aggressive racecraft. I think that was a big reason behind what happened at Cops. Completely agreed. 110%. 110%. Look earlier on in the season. Verstappen barged Hamilton out at Imola, and Hamilton backed off. It happened in Catalonia, where Max even ran a little bit wide when he pushed Hamilton out of the way in Catalonia. And Max came off the better of it. Of course, Hamilton would go on to win that race due to a brilliant strategy call. But Hamilton got beaten off the line twice. He got beaten off the line in the sprint race as well, because Hamilton tried a couple of similar aggressive moves in the sprint race that he didn't quite pull off. I would make the case that if Hamilton didn't pass Verstappen on that first lap, he was probably not winning that Grand Prix this weekend. So it's what's led me to think that what Hamilton tried at Cops was a desperation heave, because he knew, in my opinion, this is my theory, you can call me an idiot in the comments, feel free, but my theory is that Hamilton probably knew if he didn't make that pass right there and then, he probably wasn't winning that race. That's my opinion. Call me crazy in the comments, but I think that's why Hamilton tried it at Cops, because I think he knew it was a do or die move. I'm not saying what he did to Verstappen was on purpose. I just think Hamilton was like, I'm going to make this move right here, and I'm going to have you make the decision if you want to yield or not. Daniel puts it right in the comments. I think it was a calculated risk, because he was like, either Verstappen backs out or we have contact. And if you're on the outside of that corner and you have contact, the guy on the outside is always getting it worse. What's your Twitter account, by the way, Kate Goins? Like, just so I see if I know who you are. But yeah, like I said, I think it was a desperation heave from Lewis, and I think that's why it got the heat that it did. Because I don't think he wins that race if he has to chase Verstappen. Because I think Max had more pace than him. I really do. I think, like I said, I think it was a calculated risk, and I think it backfired to a degree. But it actually worked out in the way the race played out. But like I said, 150 different fortuitous things happened to Hamilton after that incident that won him that race. Yeah, and you're right, Daniel. I think Max has always been this way. From day one in Formula 1. Anyone that races Verstappen hard will tell you he's like that with everybody. And for a while he got away with it. Some drivers are not going to back down from that. They're like, okay, fine, we'll have the accident then. Nigel Mansell was like that with Ayrton Senna. Mansell was like... I remember the story that Mansell, like, came off to one side and told Ayrton, look, if you can keep racing me hard all you want, I am not going to back down from you. So if you want to have an accident to try and pass me, you go right ahead, because I'm not backing down. And then apparently Ayrton stopped trying it with Mansell, because Mansell was like, I'm not yielding, so if you want to wreck your race car, go for it. So, yeah, I think it was a desperation move from Hamilton. I think for the sake of the championship, if Hamilton doesn't make that move, he's leaving Silverstone 40 points down. With one race before the summer break. He'll be guaranteed to go into the break behind. You're racing the most aggressive guy in the sport on a 180 mile an hour corner with a do or die desperation heave. He got lucky. He got very, very lucky. But it worked out in the end. Oh, I have seen your username before, actually, Goins. Good to see you. How do you think this will impact their wheel-to-wheel battles? I don't know, Funorb. I don't know. I think, personally, this is just my opinion, I think if you're Max, the idea should be, if you're Max, keep doing what you're doing. You've got the faster race car. There was enough evidence at Silverstone to suggest you still have the fastest car, even after the upgrade. And ultimately, Hamilton's not going to keep getting away with these. He's had two very lucky incidents where he made mistakes and he still picked up 43 points. Hamilton is not going to keep getting this lucky. Make Hamilton have to take you out. Make Hamilton take the risky move. You have luck on your... You have the faster car. You have the high ground. You have the advantage. So if I'm Max, I'm just saying, keep doing what you're doing. Because it's working. You know? You had a 33-point lead going into that race. Must be doing something right. If Hamilton is going to keep saying that, you know what, I'm not going to yield, Hamilton will make more errors. We've had enough evidence of that this season to prove that Hamilton has cracked a couple of times. There's no argument there, you know? So, I don't think it will have a major impact on future fights. I think Hamilton's going to have to pick his spots better. Because, you know... Let's not forget that before this weekend, Red Bull had won 5 rounds in a row. Verstappen had won 4 of those races. And he was probably favourite for this one too. If you're Max, don't dwell on it. Keep doing what you're doing. You were smacking Mercedes around. We've not said that about them in 8 years. Keep doing what you're doing. You've got Verstappen has got every tool around him to win the championship right here and now. So I don't think it's going to change Max. Because this is what Max has always been. And he's not come off the best in these incidents before. Let's not forget he lost the race win by trying to overtake Esteban Ocon. Does it change the Max? Not really. It was a big hit about Marlene, but I don't think it will change Max's mentality. If you're Hamilton, well, you got lucky. Again, I really don't think what Hamilton's doing on track is sustainable. He's already dodged 2 bullets. The second one, somehow he ended up plus 24 off of. That's not going to keep happening. This sport will not let him get away with that again. Trust me. He's had 2 miracle heaves already. He's not going to get a third. I promise you that. So, as far as I'm concerned, he's on the back foot. So, and the problem is you've got Hungary next, and Hungary is another Red Bull track. So, good luck to him on that one. Because I think Verstappen will be very strong around Hungary as well. Cam, I'm going to keep it as it is. I like the format how it is right now. I like how it is at the moment. But good to see you in the chat, my man. Good to see you. That is Cam Buckley from the 101 podcast in the chat, if you like that way. Say hi to him. He's great. He's very good at the whole motorsport thing. You'll be seeing more of him probably on Wednesday when we record our next episode, which is bound to be spiky. But you know. Oh yeah, Ocon trying to overtake him. Yeah, thanks, Si. Appreciate that. We actually tipped it. We got to 72 viewers at one point. But a couple of minutes ago, we're at 67 now, but we got to 72. That is ridiculous. Cam, next time I'll bring you in, I promise. Like, we'll probably do at least another one during the summer break, I promise. And it'll be much more general and you'll be even better utilised there anyway, I promise. Remind me, Cam, okay? I owe you one. Terrible stop for Carlos Sainz, don't remind me. It's over Hamilton, I have the high ground. As soon as I said that, I was like, someone's going to mention Star Wars, aren't they? And that's exactly what happened. Oh dear. Theresa Maria, yes, Max's fault, not Sir Lewis Hamilton. Yeah. If you say so, Teresa. I'll agree to disagree on that one. Okay. I know somebody asked me what did I make of Red Bull's comments after the race. So I'm going to address that now. Again, I don't think what I'm saying is a hot take here, but Red Bull was unprofessional as hell. To a degree, I can understand why. Christian Horner and Red Bull has kicked arse for the last 2 months, and they've had all their hard work and all the title advantage that they had wiped out from one bad weekend, and their main car was taken out. I can understand why in the heat of the moment Horner and Marco would be a little bit OTT and say some silly shit. Like, you know, saying that Hamilton should be suspended for a race. No, that's ludicrous. And most reasonable people know that's ludicrous. And, you know, look, I am not a fan of Christian Horner as a team principal. Or Helmut Marko. I think they just say wacky shit most of the time because they know that they can. Like, Horner never has to worry about job security. He effectively runs that team. You know? And Marko, again, he's not accountable by anybody else's standards. So he can just say whatever the fuck he wants. You know? So they are gonna say wacky shit. Because they can. And to a degree, I get why they did. I am fuming like they are, And if I was in their shoes, I'd be pissed off too. I understand. I get it. I'd be mad as hell myself. What Horner probably should have done is he should have said, you know what? I'm going to sit this one out. No press today. We're going to gather our thoughts and go from there. Because, unfortunately, he was not helped by Max then putting his foot in his mouth on Instagram after the race. Like, it did not help. I'm not disputing that it did not help. Like, they probably should have just not talked to the press. I don't think anybody would have... I think people would have understood if they were like, no media. Because their man's been taken out. They've had a horror show weekend. I know Toto Wolff was denied media before, when Mercs have had a bad day. It's understandable that he might not want to talk to Sky, or talk to the world's media, or talk about anything else. I get it. I would have completely understood if they were like, you know what, not today, Jack. But the things said were ludicrous. They were ridiculous. They were big mad. They were silly hot takes. They were... You know, they were stuff that is going to just have people say, fuck off. It's that sort of just meltdown shit that you probably didn't even actually mean, but it's going to elicit a response out of people. Especially given Horner's talked about the aggressive moves that Max has made and waxing lyrical over how great some of Verstappen's over-aggressive moves were earlier on in the season, right? And don't get me wrong, every team principal has been hypocrites at some point. I've said it before, don't look at team principals like team principals. Look at them like politicians. Because that's what they are, really. In the context of F1, they are politicians. They will say whatever the fuck they want. Right? They're not gonna have their previous comments hauled up in front of the media every 2 seconds. We do that on Twitter anyway. Quite frankly. So, you know, the fact that we hold team principals to a ridiculously high standard when it comes to handling the media, when they could be just as petty as we are. And that's probably partly our fault as consumers of the sport, because they're just as hot-takey, they are just as anger-infused, and they are just as politicking as some of us are on Twitter that are hardcore fans of the sport, that back their territories. Because, let's be frank, and I'm going to say something, this might actually be a hot take, what I'm about to say here, right? These are the two most toxic fan bases in Formula 1. Without question. The worst of the shit I see on social media regarding Formula 1 comes from either the Hamilton camp or the Verstappen camp. It's normally one or the other. So now that their two drivers hit each other on a racetrack, and then of course Red Bull are going to chip in with tweets that wouldn't look out of place on F1 Twitter, it's going to bring out the worst in people. Now, here's the key distinction that I want to make. There is a massive, massive difference between being unprofessional, which is what Red Bull were, no doubt about it. Completely unprofessional from Red Bull. Red Bull were silly in saying what they said. Right? There is a massive difference between that and being racist. If people are going to be racist on social media, they do not need any extra help. Trust me, I know. I've been on the receiving end of this. So for people to say that Red Bull is the reason why Lewis Hamilton's been racially abused on social media, you have your head up your arse. You've not been watching, you've not been reading the news in the last year. Because Formula One is only just catching up to what we've already seen in football. And if you're a football fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. Because this new trend has started in the last year where if a prominent black footballer has a bad game or a bad day, they will be sent monkey emojis on Instagram. Because they now know that Instagram will not ban you against their own terms of service for monkey emojis. Formula One has turned a blind eye to this because they're not football fans. But if you've been reading a newspaper in the last 12 months, you will see the bigger picture. And it's sad that it took a national scandal with Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho and Bukayo Saka after the European Championship final for people to realise just how bad this problem is, because now it's hit Lewis. Lewis was always going to get this eventually, because that's the trend. The trend is, if you're black, you're a sports athlete, and you're trending on social media, you will get racially abused now. Because it's been happening in football since Wilfried Zaha got it. Since Raheem Sterling got it, like the better part of a year ago. So for people to say that this is Red Bull's fault, I've completely missed the point. Completely. The people that are saying that are the people that are looking for an excuse. And that's the worst part of all this, is that they're doing a lot more of the fanning the flames that they're accusing Red Bull of doing. So, I think blaming Red Bull is lazy. Because it's looking for an excuse when racists don't need one to do what they do on social media. And I know, LGH, that Ziggo Sports is the Verstappen channel. I get it. He's probably the biggest Dutch sporting celebrity out there, not named Michael van Gerwen. I completely understand that mentality. However, these are grown adults. They know exactly what they're doing, right? These are not idiots, right? They are going out of their way to be mean to people on purpose. They do not need an excuse or a vindication to go and be racist on social media. They have every intention to do so, and they don't need any help. Them pinning the situation on Red Bull is them looking for vindication. That's all it is. Take it from a guy that has taken racist abuse for being on social media for over a decade. These dickheads do not need added motivation. Trust me on this. They do not need their help. I saw this last year when Verstappen didn't take a knee, said racism was complicated, right? And then when that happened, what started trending in the Netherlands? The hashtag that translated to "kneeling is for idiots." Did anybody blame Red Bull then? They didn't. They were looking for an excuse and they found one. The guys that are doing this are not stupid. Not from an intellectual standpoint. They do not need an external influence. They were doing this with Hamilton anyway. This was just a bigger flashpoint because their man was taken out by the black F1 driver. So no, I am not going to sit there and pin this on Red Bull. And no, I'm not going to sit there and say, these guys aren't F1 fans. They are. They are all a part of this wider circle of motorsport fandom. And to isolate them is trying to mitigate their part of the problem. And I don't blame these dickheads for being dickheads. The onus should be on social media to go out of their way to have better policies to remove these dickheads from using their platforms. But I also know that I am not stupid and they are not going to do that. There is no incentive. There is no incentive for a social media site to spend more money and spend more resources to get these dickheads off their platforms. Because the sad reality is that these dickheads make them money. They're on the platform. Their engagement is just as valuable as mine, yours, and everybody else that's watching it. They'll get rid of the odd guy here and there, but they're not going to get rid of these mass accounts, these Discord circle jerks, and these guys that are insinuating and going out of their way to drive people off the platform via racist abuse. It's never going to happen, because I don't like being bleak, but social media is too big to fail. And that's the biggest part of the problem. They are worth billions of pounds, and they are now an integral part of our lives. There's no getting around that. Let's not forget, English football took a 3-day boycott of social media, and a fair few other sports joined in the wagon, like darts in the UK, like rugby did, like cricket did. What did it do? Nothing. They took millions off social media's table because they didn't buy ad space for their Premier League games that weekend, including Man United versus Liverpool, which I'd argue is the biggest televised game in the country, UK-wise, because the rescheduled game after we had the riots at Manchester was the biggest watched game on Sky Sports last season. So they took millions away in ad space, and it didn't change a goddamn thing. This is who we are. This is who we are, and to say otherwise is basically admitting that you're part of the problem. So, unfortunately, until they start hitting these dudes' wallets harder, they are never going to change. These are massive corporations that could hire a whole heap of people to individually look at reports and get people banned off platforms, because humans can add nuance rather than the algorithms they have placed in their system, and they're not going to bother. Why? Why would they spend more money to take money off their platform? They're never going to do that. Unfortunately, if you're a prominent black athlete, you will now be racially abused on the platform, because people now know that 99% of the time they will be able to get away with it in the long run. Because even if an account gets banned, they can just create a new one. There's no real punishment. The only place that IP bans people is Reddit. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram don't do that. So, unfortunately, there's no obvious solution to this. It is not going to change. It would take something like what Boris Johnson was threatening, where it was like, yeah, we could fine you 10% of your global revenue, but there is no fucking way that Boris would ever do something like that. At least in my opinion, anyway. Because unfortunately, on these social media platforms, on a large scale level, racism is good for business. That is the real reason why the social media firestorm with Verstappen and Hamilton is so frustrating, because it's a drop in the bucket compared to the larger issues with social media in general. If anything, I'm actually quite disappointed at how many people within F1 have only now just realised the scale of the problem because Hamilton was the one that was targeted. Whereas if you've read a paper in the UK at any point in the last year, you would know that this was inevitable. I was talking about that with Ben Hunt. He writes for The Sun. The Sun have fucking perpetrated half of this shit. It's laughable. Like, read the fucking room. If football was any indicator, this was always going to happen, regardless of the incident, regardless of what happened with Verstappen on track. Read the room. All the Premier League footballers got it, if you were black. After what happened with Marcus Rashford, who, let's not forget, Marcus Rashford is now a worldwide global sports star that moved a lot of people for what he did in the UK. He was racially abused after missing that penalty. A guy that, in my opinion, is a national fucking hero. A man that raised over £20 million to feed hungry children and forced the government into spending hundreds of millions more on policies to save hungry children. He got racially abused. One of them by a fucking school teacher. A school teacher! We're too far gone, bruh. We are too far gone. Anyone with a brain cell could have worked out that that was inevitable. And everyone's just like, oh my god, Hamilton got racially abused. Half of these guys mentioned 2008. What did you think was going to happen in this era? This was always going to happen. I'd put a solid wager that even if the Verstappen incident didn't happen, he'd have got racially abused this weekend. Sorry I got a bit heated there, because as a young black man in this country, you read these stories every week and you roll your eyes at it because it's so fucking predictable. Any black person that saw how that incident played out would have seen what happened this weekend coming a mile away. A mile away. This was not a shock if you're a person of colour. At all. But half of F1, now F1 has all come together like, racism is bad, guys. Like, real talk. The level of the bar of understanding how annoying this is, like, and how obvious this is, it would be like having a high jump competition with the bar being my TV remote on the ground. This is not difficult to comprehend. The fact that so many people were surprised about this boggles my mind. It gives me brain worms. I saw Marlene's comment and seen that the F1 subreddit has apparently deleted over 1,000 comments. Over 1,000. Hazel, who writes for racefans.net, had to apparently delete a whole wave of comments that are insinuating racism and all that shit. Let me find the exact tweet, actually. Hang on. Because I know she has to moderate the comments on their posts. I'll find out exactly what she said. Give me a second here. Quote, just cleaned out loads of commenters alleging Hamilton was aiming to harm Verstappen because, quote, not all lives matter. Verstappen has every right to be upset with Hamilton personally. Racist fans looking for an excuse to show their arses need to get out and shut up. People were dropping N-words in Jess McFadden's inbox. Who's white? Like, why? For what? For who? This is who we are. And if you're in denial about that, then you're part of the problem. Toro Rosso's statement was laughable. It's like, we racers won, how can we still have racism? Look around, bruh. Look around. And no, I'm not going to make sarcastic comments about re-racers won, because I like to think the teams and the majority of the drivers have done and said what they've done with the best of intentions. Unfortunately, some of the drivers want to protect their own image more than caring about racism because they don't want to step on anybody's toes. When the reality is that if you want to address racism, and I've said this countless times, if you want to address racism, you're going to make some white folks uncomfortable. You're gonna have to upset some white people. There's no getting around that at this point. It's impossible to dance around these problems without it. But people like being willfully blind, as Katie puts in the chat. People want to brush it under the rug because it's easier to deal with. It's easier to cope with that than sit down and have these difficult conversations. The amount of times I've had to do it at work, for example, in my day job. I'll give you a real-world example. I work in a bookies. For those guys who don't know me very well, I work in a gambling shop. Right? Last week, I had to sit there with a half-drunk white guy look me dead in the eye and say, quote, the problem with you black people is that white people will always own you. Let that one sink in for a minute. This is why people get angry about it. This is why, as a black person, your reaction is almost on trial half the time. Because I've got to sit there and swallow that. Because half me wanted to leave the counter and punch that drunken fucker in the face. But if I do that, I lose my job. I lose my livelihood. That's the reality of the country that I live in. And yeah, the UK is one of the worst offenders. And people want to talk about putting IDs on social media accounts? Have you ever seen a Facebook thread? People have got no problem being racist with their government names. None! It doesn't matter. It's barefaced. I'm 29 next month. I've had to grow a very thick skin because of the nature of my work, because I know for a fact that I have to stay calm. Because if I lost my rag at everyone that said hurtful things towards me, I wouldn't be in this job. Well, I've been in the industry 5 years. Because you're dealing with vulnerable people that are losing money. And losing money brings out the worst in people. But, trust me, when I tell you this as a black person, it all strikes very close to home. And I completely understand why some people say that they don't want to mix sport with politics, because they use sports as their escape to whatever miserableness that comes out of their life, which I understand to a degree. But for people like me, there is no escape. And this weekend in sport was another sad reminder of that. F1 is not above racism. No sport is. No walk of life is. So, if you guys can do me one solid, if you want to heed my words, please report it. It's the best we can do. Is that keep putting pressure on these big social media platforms to change. Because this is not going to stop anytime soon, and until there's greater consequences for the individuals that use these accounts, until social media wants to open their wallets and genuinely care about the problem, it's never going to fucking go away. So the best we can do is report the shit out of these fuckers. Name and shame. Report their accounts. Report their LinkedIn pages. Because like I said, people are not afraid to use their government names to do this. Trust me. I've seen it, I've lived it, I've breathed it. Because the unfortunate reality is, and I hear your comment, Susanna, I understand why people don't want their sports and politics to mix. But the reality of it is that sports is politics. And it is inescapable to try and separate the two. It's impossible. They are joined at the hip. That got dark for a second there, and I didn't mean to go so deep on that, but I just wanted to share my perspective as a young black man that has to deal with this on a frequent basis. I don't speak on behalf of anybody else. I only speak for me and my experience. But this is a disease of its own kind. And it, unfortunately, it's going to take more people speaking out for anything to change. So if I have to do that more frequently, I will. And I don't care who it pisses off to get to that point. I'm going to read some of your comments now. Okay, Alan, people don't want politics in sports to define everything they don't like as such. How can feeding children be a political stance? Because, my friend, we have a government that doesn't care about feeding hungry children. So unfortunately, being pro feeding hungry children is a political response. When our own Home Secretary wanted to call taking the knee gesture politics, unfortunately, taking the knee in the United Kingdom is a political stance because our government is outwardly racist and does not care about black people. So I completely get why people say it shouldn't be a political stance. But unfortunately, in the context of this country, it is a political stance. And we probably should stop telling people that, oh, being anti-racist is political. I'm sorry, in the context of our country, and in the context of how we run our shit, it is a political stance. And I'm tired of pretending that it isn't. Nothing personal towards the UK, but I hope you see where I'm coming from on that. Because it is infuriating. It shouldn't be. You're absolutely right. It shouldn't be. You think the concept of feeding children should be basic. That should be rule number 1. No child should ever have to go hungry. No child should ever have to go hungry in the 6th largest economy in the world. But here we are. You know what broke my heart about reading the messages around Marcus Rashford's mural in Manchester? The one that broke my heart was the 6-year-old kid who had on a post-it note, "Thank you for our dinner, Marcus." Because I'm delighted that they love Marcus and they see him as the hero that he should be for what he's done. But you know how sad it makes me that a child has to thank a Premier League footballer for their dinner? In the 6th largest economy in the world? It makes me so angry that this is what I have to call my country. That hurts. When I first read that comment, I nearly started crying. Because it broke my heart that a child is looking at a Premier League footballer as a hero for feeding their family. It's embarrassing that a Premier League footballer, the entity of this society that we love to hate in this country, and we've hated for over a decade, because we couldn't stand footballers. The amount of times I heard that argument that footballers are overpaid and that footballers don't do enough, and then when the pandemic started, Matt Hancock was like, footballers should do more. They did more. They went above and beyond on numerous occasions. And then children's got to go thank Marcus Rashford for feeding them. Our government's a fucking joke. I'll say that much. But that's where we're at. And I'm not going to hide away from that. It is what it is. And that's what makes it so frustrating. To answer your question, Lorelli, all I can do is ban them from my shop if I get racially abused. I can put through a banning notice. They won't be allowed to gamble in my shop anymore. That's all I can do. Because, unfortunately, if I went to the police and said this person's done a hate crime, they can't prove it. It's one person's word against another. It would never hold up in a court. So all I can do is ban them. So it's pointless me taking it any further than that. Because all I can do is just kick them out of my shop. And if they refuse to leave, I can call the police. But all they will do is just take them outside and say, don't do that again. Slap on the wrist, off you go. That's all it is, man. That's all it is. Oh, God. Yeah, hell, one of Formula One's favourite sons said as soon as he got into the sport, Formula One's political, and that was Ayrton Senna. Yeah, of course it is. On every level it's politics. I honestly, I'd love to know where we started getting the idea that sport and politics are separate entities. Because again, for a lot of people, their comfort is more important than dealing with racism. And that's just the reality of it. Reported a guy for racism towards Lewis and another F1 tweeter on Friday and Twitter did nothing. Yeah. Because it's all algorithms. It's all algorithms. No human looks at these cases. Don't be sorry for me, Marlene. I appreciate the kind words, guys. I really do. You know, I'm the sort of guy that feels like it's best if you take the Band-Aid off. That's all it is. All I can ever really ask of people is to listen. That's all I can ever need. If you listen and you understand, that's all I can ever ask. That's all it is. Let's have a look. Oh shit. Looks like the Thailand MotoGP round's gonna get cancelled again. That's a bummer. Just checking Twitter at the moment real quick. But no, if there's if there's anything else you guys want to ask, question-wise, anything at all for the next half hour, knock yourself out in the chat. I do not mind. Unfortunately, we dropped off a lot of viewers on that front. It's understandable, you know. I was at 70, we're now at 50, and I'm completely okay with that, because if they make people uncomfortable, then I'm dumb, and if they can't watch anymore, then I know I'm doing my job properly, quite frankly. Scott saying, I've seen lots of racist Alonso fans and I mentions on Twitter, got people to mass report one of them. It took months for them to get suspended. Just create new accounts. Some of the worst people in F1 Twitter have had multiple accounts. Also, Felix, let me just say right now, like, having to verify your identity on social media would be a terrible idea. It is not going to solve anything. And to quickly explain, right? First of all, people have no problem being racist using their government names. Again, seen it, lived it, breathed it. Been on Facebook, been on Twitter with people that use their full names. I've seen people on LinkedIn do it on numerous occasions. It's not going to change a damn thing. If people want to be racist, they will do it. Because they do not care about the potential consequences until somebody reports them. Trust me on this. That's problem number one. Problem number two, having IDs on social media will put vulnerable people at risk. The right to anonymity is important. In many different facets of life, you need people to be anonymous to get shit done. Whether it be whistleblowing, whether it be journalism and reporting, whether it be for safety reasons, for protection for certain people. The right to remain anonymous is incredibly important. That should not disappear because a minority of dickheads are being racist on social media. It puts vulnerable people at risk, it puts victims at risk, it puts people on the run at risk, and real talk, it's transphobic too. There are a lot of trans people that no longer want to go by their government name that's on their IDs. What do we do then? Are we forcing people to bring up their dead names to be able to have a Twitter account? What do we do then? It's not fair on them. It's a transphobic policy. So, overall, I'm a big fan of not needing an ID to have social media. It does not work, and it will not solve the problem that people want it to solve. And hey, want to know a fun fact? The UK government leaked out yesterday that there's 3.5 million people in this country that have no form of ID. 3.5 million people in this country have no form of recognisable ID. It's not going to work. Even if the government mandated a state-backed ID, it's never going to work. Do not do it. You do not want your identity being verified on Twitter as bad as you think you do. Trust me. Trust me on this. Appreciate you listening, Felix. Where did I get the Intertop? Nike.com. Exactly where you think it is. It's 65 quid. It's 78 if you want a name and number on the back. I don't know if they've still got any, but I got them the first day it came out. But, yeah, got it from Nike.com. Don't overthink it. Bet saying, sorry my mate called, I missed a lot of the stream. Felt like I missed a good conversation. Hey, that's what replays are for. That's what replays are for. Completely understandable. Don't worry about it. People get busy. The fact that people are spending their evening sitting down listening to me talking to a microphone is the greatest privilege you could possibly imagine, and I'm very thankful that so many people have gone out of their way to do so. So do not apologise to me for missing a certain amount of time. At all. I appreciate you. I really do. Everybody that's coming in here and listening. Not a big sports car guy, Jeremy. Asking about the IMSA WEC convergence. Getting everybody on the same set of rules can only be a good thing in the long run. Probably. Then again, sports cars have always got a chance of screwing itself up somehow. So I'll see how creative they are in that one, at least. But I think on paper it is a good thing. Yeah, football shirts are mad expensive though, Jezza. 110 US. That's even more expensive than it is here in the UK. It's 78 quid with a name and number on the back in the UK. It's extortion. Because they know you'll buy the new one every year that it comes out. And most football clubs have 3 kits a year these days. Like, most places have 3. Like, some have 4. So, like, they know exactly what they're doing. My advice is always this. If you don't mind a bit of FOMO, buy them at the end of the year when they're running out of stock and they want to get rid of their old stock before the new shirts come in. Buy them at the end of a season, not at the start. Because by the time you get to the end of the season, they're all about half price. Best piece of advice I can give you on the day. Like, just wait till the end of the year and buy them, because they'll all be half price. Because by the time you get to, like, May, June, July, when the season's over, like, by the time you get to that point, like, it's dead stock. They can't wait to get rid of it. So buy it then. If you're willing to wait 9 months. I know it's a bit frustrating, but I openly admit I overspend on football shirts massively. Got no problem admitting that. Pete's a drag. I genuinely could listen to you all day. Currently got you on in the background doing uni work, so it's a good company. Thank you, Pete. That's very kind of you, man. Very kind of you. Thank you. That's really sweet to know that, I'm worth listening to. Especially for over 2 hours already. It's why we like you, Dre. It's why we watch you. Thank you, man. Thank you, Warwick. That's very kind of you. Hey, Jason. Good to see you. Sup, James? Good to see you, man. Yeah, summer for bus like Juventus. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, winter's a good time as well. Vic's spot on. They normally will take at least 20-25% off at Christmas. Because clothes are always good football shirts. Always take advantage of Christmas and end of season sales. If you don't mind being a year behind. There's a reason why we listen, though. Some unfiltered, well-thought-through opinions and discussion that's actually constructive is what we need after today. Thank you, Felix. Again, that's very, very kind of you. Look, I openly admit, I don't come out with quick takes. I overthink almost everything as part of my ASD. I can't help it. But with me, it's actually helpful because it means I think about what I'm going to say before I say it. And 9 times out of 10, I'd like to think my takes are pretty nuanced. And trust me, not to brag, but I know for a fact that the majority of people on social media don't do that. Every kid that you can think of comes out with hot takes. Because hot takes are cool now. Because everything gets engagement nowadays. You know? Some people will put out the dumbest shit on Twitter and they'll get 350 likes for it. Or 500 likes. Or 100 retweets. And they're going viral. I don't believe in that. I don't give a shit about engagement. I just come out with what I think makes sense. And I'd like to think that's part of the reason why I have the following that I do. And I'm very grateful for that. So, you know. It's why I like doing these hangouts so much. Just checking the tweets here. Let's check here. Stephen A. Smith on Shohei Ohtani. Don't remind me, Jeremy. And look, I'll be one of the few people that's willing to admit, like, I have never liked Stephen A. Smith in this new, like, I'm going to abandon all my journalistic integrity to come out with hot takes, Stephen A. Smith. And we love it because it's funny, and it generates memes, and it's good for content on the internet. But what Stephen A. Smith came out with regarding Shohei Ohtani was pure, unbridled xenophobia. Talking about how the Japanese star player is almost obligated to learn English because it will make him a bigger star. I'm not the biggest baseball fan in the world, but I do know that Ichiro Suzuki was not a fluent English speaker for years, and it did not reduce his star power one bit. What made Ichiro a star was because he was one of the most uniquely gifted baseball players ever seen. Like, it had nothing to do with how fluent an English speaker he was. It was because he could bunt, and how he was one of the best contact hitters in the history of baseball. It had nothing to do with how fluent an English speaker we are. And that's the thing that's really arrogant about predominantly English-speaking countries, is that we expect everyone to come here and then learn the language. When I guarantee you, like, And I've seen this happen on holidays, for example, where English students will go to Spain and they expect everyone to speak English. Because we're super popular. I have so much respect for people that go out of their way to learn multiple languages. It's such a skill. It's an incredible skill. And Shohei's a great English speaker. I've heard him do interviews in English. His English is fine. Other stars are the same way. Ronald Acuna is getting better at speaking English. Fernando Tatis Jr., one of the biggest names in baseball right now, is again, Dominican originally. Like, fantastic English speaker. It does not matter. People are not watching Shohei Ohtani because of how well he speaks English. People are watching him because he can hit 480 feet home runs and pitch at 100 miles an hour. He's a freak. He's the biggest freak in sports right now. But of course, idiots like Stephen A. Smith want to make it about, oh, how English is he? He's got to speak American for him to be a star. And I'm like, fuck off. Did you see the All-Star game the weekend? The home run derby, the All-Star game? The man was box office. Everybody was just so excited to see him that it did not matter about what his language is. It's bullshit. James makes a great point. Canelo Alvarez, arguably the biggest name in professional boxing right now, barely speaks English. And I've heard him speak a bit of English. His English is getting better. I'm a cricket fan right now. Babar Azam for Pakistan. A year ago, needed a translator to speak for him. Now can actually speak decent English. It's bullshit. I'm glad he had to go and apologise, Stephen A. Smith, because that was one of the stupidest and ignorant takes I've seen regarding, like, again, not the biggest baseball fan in the world, but I will tell you for free, baseball doesn't fucking know how good it's got it right now with all the younger stars that are coming through in that sport right now. Like, Mookie Betts signed a massive deal and he was already an MVP. Like, Mike Trout doesn't have to carry the load no more. Because you've got Ronald Acuna, I hope he gets well soon, Shohei Ohtani, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Fernando Tatis Jr. Like, they've got stars everywhere. And they're dropping the ball on them. I made a video about it years ago with IndyCar and Joseph Newgarden, and like, hello, handsome American superstar here. Pluck the shit out of him. But no. We're stupid like that. It's ridiculous. The people don't care what they get those likes for. So the chemicals in the brain are the same, feeding the trolls. Yeah, couldn't agree more, Katie. I've been watching The Blast. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Bet, like, I like The Blast, but I'm genuinely more excited for the 100 starting on Wednesday. Because even at its worst this year, with a lot of the foreign stars not taking part that they originally had a year or 2 years ago, like Jason, it's still going to be, I think, a more concentrated version of The Blast, because I don't like the fact it's an 18-team tournament where all the best talent gets spread out so much. Like, it's not great for the England national team from a T20 standpoint, and, like, it also means it's such a bloated tournament that a good chunk of the games don't even get televised. You've got to go out of your way to watch on county streaming platforms, and I'm just not a big fan of that. Like, you need that TV audience, and at least, and look, I'm going to sound like a marketing shill, but at least every game of the 100 will be televised. That's a huge deal. And it's going to end up creating more stars. And don't get me wrong, I don't think it's perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I think the women's not getting paid enough. I think it's a huge gamble for the county game. And a lot of old school fans are not going to like this. But if it gets new people watching cricket, I am all for it. And I think the 100 has huge potential to be a bastion for the game. Because England needed a smaller T20 league to compete with Pakistan and India and Australia. Like, an 18-team blast is a mess. There's no getting around it. At least that's my opinion. And again, like, for the good of the game, like, we need it to do well. It really do. What 1-2 helmets do you have? I've got like 25 of them up there. A lot of Schumachers, a lot of Vettels, a couple of them Hulkenberg, a couple from Alonso. I'll show them off in a proper video one day because there's too many to go through, to be honest with you. But you could probably recognise a few of them just from looking up there, to be honest with you. Personal favourite, Vettel's 2018, right here. Sits on my PS4. Very useful indeed. Yeah, everybody's saying the same thing. Baseball's terrible at marketing their stars. Couldn't agree more. Was Maurice Green one of your favourite athletes? No, but he was the first sprinter I remembered growing up watching. Because when he ran 9.79, I was watching it as it happened. Because, like, you remember the big muscles, and the bald head and the tongue wag, and the fact he was the best sprinter in the world for a good few years. So yeah, I wouldn't say he was my favourite. I didn't really like him per se, but I do remember him certainly. Will you talk about the Olympics? Any predictions or thoughts? They shouldn't be happening. Which is why I think no one really cares about them. To be honest with you. I
always endeavour to do so.
Shut up, Siri. But, it is what it is, in that sense. But yeah, I haven't really got a massive amount of opinions, to be honest. I'm just looking forward to watching a lot of sports for the next month. I'll agree, went to my first games last weekend and was so spooked for the games at Hampshire, but they should have been on TV. I'm intrigued at the 100. Yeah, give it a go. I think it's going to be fun, definitely. I know you said Lewis has made mistakes, but Max made a silly mistake off the line in France, and he also got lucky in Monaco, benefiting from Charles not starting P1. Yeah. Maybe, but, yeah. You're right, France was probably Max's biggest error, but, as you said, as Cam points out in the chat, it didn't cost him anything. Because Merck screwed up on strategy. Because, again, we all like to think it's the driver 110% of the time, but there's more to it than that. There's always more to it than that. And we just don't like to admit that until something bad happens. Any thoughts about the F1 2021 game? Not played it yet, my man, unfortunately. I don't really have an intention of buying it, to be honest with you. One, I lack time, and two, I dropped off the F1 franchise about 3 years ago. I think it's gone too much towards the way of being a sim that I don't really enjoy it anymore. MotoGP went exactly the same way from a game standpoint some time ago. They're obsessed with catering to their hardcore audience and the esports players because everything wants to be in esports these days. That's how these studios are now making more money. And I don't like that mentality. But I'll keep it brief on that point. Any half-ass helmet you'd want but don't have yet? Not really, to be honest, because they're expensive. They're like 150 quid minimum for a decent half-scale helmet. And then we're going up from that point, depending on the name, depending on the rarity. So it's an expensive habit, and I've kind of dropped that off at this point. So, no, I'm happy with what I've got, definitely. I'm going quick fire here now. Who should United sign at centre-back, says Jeremy. Not Raphael Varane. I think he's overrated, and I'm not sure I'd be spending 40 million quid on a 28-year-old. Has Verstappen reached the mentality required to be world champion? Definitely. Definitely a way better driver than he was 2 years ago. I think we've seen enough from Verstappen at this point to say that he's got every reason and every chance to win the championship. Most definitely. IndyCar question from Zoe. Do you think Joseph or Dixie catch Alex? My gut says no. Alex Palou would have to have one or two really catastrophic rounds. I think Palou is just really good. Like, Chip Ganassi is the best team in the sport right now. And Palou has barely put a foot wrong all year. It's like, he belongs. He's come in and hit this series almost immediately. And honestly, I think Dixon and Joseph are taking too many points off each other. That's the problem. No one's really been able to land a killer blow on Palou since Detroit. So, you know, that's the problem so far on this one, you know? I wouldn't, and Jeremy's right, never count out Dixon, but it's getting close to the point where Dixon needs help. Certainly. Because I don't think Dixon's got it in him to win multiple rounds in a season now. He's not been quite at that level he's been in years past. It's just, I think it's just more competitive this year, and that favours someone like Palou. Lewis left starter gets better as the season goes on. Do you expect Lewis to kick on and be more consistent? It might not matter, Tats. It might not matter. I think the key difference is Lewis is not in the best car anymore. Like, Lewis has had pressure like this before, but like, the difference is that Lewis has probably had the best car in almost all those occasions. This time, I think Max has the advantage on equipment, which means Lewis probably automatically has to work harder to get into those key positions, like we saw at Silverstone this weekend. So if he can overcome the car deficit, he's got every chance. But in Formula 1, the best car tends to win. And I think Red Bull has that at the moment. So we'll have to wait and see. Predictions for this weekend's Formula E race? Unpredictable. That's my prediction. You want me to predict a Formula E race weekend when I reckon there's 15 dudes who can win that championship? Good luck. I recorded our two-parter in Formula E about New York the other day, last week. We genuinely sat down and reckoned that there are 15 drivers who can win that championship. Jake Dennis is 27 points off the top. He's won a Grand Prix this season, and he's in 15th place in the championship. It's that close. With qualifying, reverse grids, and who knows what happens at the Excel Centre, I have no idea. I say that genuinely, I have no idea. I put the blame on Leclerc's shoulders for Ferrari when I go with that Q3 crash. Completely right, Jeff. Look, let's put it to you this way. Leclerc doesn't bin it in the wall. It doesn't matter if Ferrari's incompetent or not. Case in point is, Leclerc put this team in a situation that they shouldn't have been in the first place, and then the team screwed up themselves. It was all a shit show. And I'm surprised that Charles got away with that one, because that was a nailed-on win for him that weekend. Dixon needs snookers, quite possibly. McLaren have been extremely inconsistent. I feel bad for O'Ward, still 2 wins and a 4th at Indy. That's the reason why Pado's still in it. He was great at Indianapolis and he's won 2 races. If he can work the rest of that out later on, he's got this. MotoGP champion, is it nailed on for Quartararo? Probably Fun Orb is what I would say. Quartararo is the best rider in the world right now, and he's riding around Yamaha's obvious problems. It's a good combination. I think the Ducatis are all taking points off each other, and I think that's what will inevitably open it up for Fabio more, because Zarco, Miller and Bagnaia, the other big contenders, are all roughly the same area. The only guy right now in championship contention that I think has the pace to match Fabio right now is Miguel Oliveira. And he gave up too many points at the start of the year before KTM got the upgrade. That's his biggest problem. The last 4 rounds, the only man who's matched Fabio for points has been Miggy. Everybody else has scored less. The only man in Fabio's ballpark is Miguel Oliveira. And I think he's given up too many points already. That's what I think. Jeff Fangirl mode activates. Nice one, Katie. Any Ashes thoughts, James? Says James. We're getting shit stomped. We're probably losing at least 3-0. England's bowlers are okay. Our batting is not good enough. Our batting is a fucking mess right now. We are all in on the youngsters for England cricket, and we have not got one all-round batter that can handle all conditions. Root can't play against pace. Stokes isn't particularly good against spin, and those are our best 2 batters right now. Everybody else has got significant flaws in their game, or are too young at this level. Crawley is probably going to get benched for David Milan, who I think is overrated. Sibley is one-dimensional. Burns and Lawrence and everybody else are just either average or middling at best. I think the bowling's our strongest attribute. Anderson, Broad, probably Archer, probably Sam Curran. Ollie Robinson, as much as he was a dickhead, is a talented bowler. Could still make it to the Ashes, possibly. But batting-wise, we suck. And I think on Aussie pitches, we're going to get mauled, because I think the Aussies have got the best bowling attack in the world. They've got Pat Cummins, Josh Hazelwood, Nathan Lyon is a brilliant bowler. They've got options beneath him, like Mitchell Stark, like Mitchell Marsh, Pattinson, potentially. The Aussies are in a different league bowling-wise, and they've got the best test batter in the world in Steve Smith, and Marnus Labuschagne is excellent at home. So, yeah, it's going to be wild, but I think we're going to get shit stomped. Let's have a look real quick. Bet saying, can we get a stream chat with you and Hazel Southwell chat Formula E and Twingos? Bless. Look, I love Hazel to death. Behind all the journalism, one of the nicest people I've ever met, one of the biggest fans and supporters of me I've ever had in my life. She's not got the time for me. I don't mean that to say that I'm worthy of that, but she's always tried to get me involved in projects, and it's never quite worked out timing-wise, unfortunately. She's an incredibly busy lady. She juggles being an editor at The Drive with being at race fans and taking on any other work like Inside Electric. She spreads herself really thin because she's one of the best Formula E journalists in the world. Probably, like, Sam at Sniffers Media is like the only other person that's in that ballpark. For me, he's the best in the world at Formula E. Hazel's a close second. She's a big endorser of diversity and a big endorser of me. We've talked about plans before, but it's never quite worked out, unfortunately. Fingers crossed it does one day. I'd like it to, because she's a good friend. But, unfortunately, life gets in the way. I have a full-time job. I have this as well. She's got writing and journalism work for 2 or 3 different places, unfortunately. And, it's just, we get really busy. It's one of those things. I wish we could. She's absolutely a queen. Completely agreed, Katie. It's just one of those things, and she's cute as fuck. It certainly helps. Anyway. Where's Maverick going and who replaces him? Maverick's probably going to Aprilia. Every journalist and their mother has said that Maverick is going to Aprilia. They just haven't announced it yet. I think they'll replace him with Frankie Morbidelli, but that could be complicated because the man's got a very bad knee at the moment, and if they take Morbidelli, SRT need 2 new riders. There are rumours that they might take Sam Lowes and Jake Dixon next year as like a makeshift All-Britain team, but it's not the same as having Fabio and Morbidelli from 2 years ago. That's rough. Just checking the chat real quick, sorry. Dre, be careful. Not sure we can handle all this truth. Doing my best, Bet. Doing my best. God bless you. Can I say, as someone who was relatively new to MotoGP, your vids back in 2019 and 20, well, that what convinced me to give it a shot. Please keep talking about it more. I really enjoy your thoughts. Thank you, man. That means a lot, because I would love more people to watch MotoGP. I think it's the best motorsport series in the world. I really do. Have said it so many times. I think it's a fantastic series. And I'm really, really glad I've convinced you into watching. That's wonderful. It means I'm doing my job properly as a sports fan if I can get people to watch more great sport, and MotoGP is a fantastic fucking series. So I'm really, really glad that you're watching. That's awesome. It makes me happy inside. Thank you very much for that, man. I'm delighted to hear that. Despite me, Cam's handling that question about Perez quite well. He's saying exactly what I would say. Hazel's incredible. Maybe one day the stars will align. Completely agree. Hazel has forgotten more about Formula E than I could learn about motorsport in general. I've had many a conversation with her on Discord, and if you think my knowledge retention is impressive, she's on a different level. That woman has been through so many different walks of life and done so many different jobs and gigs and knows the industry inside and out. She's incredible. She's an oracle for information. Like, absolute superstar. One of the very, very best in this game. Like, they don't make them like Hazel. Trust me. I have a lot of time for her work, and for her in general, most certainly. Let's just say, she gave me a lot of confidence that I would never have had to be a content creator if it wasn't for her backing. So, if you ever like my shit, tweet her and say thank you, because she's been a big endorser of what's made me the content creator that I am today, and I'm very grateful for that. Swedish F1 coverage is a studio where the end race is a movement before the race happens. Not seen it for a while. Do they still do it? They do still do it. Some drivers still don't, Neil Felix. It's a dead movement now at this point. Like, I'm glad the sport is actually doing a little bit more using their name for things like scholarships and whatnot, like that was announced last week. But ignore the moments of unity before the race. It's irrelevant at this point. I wouldn't read too much into it. How do you fit so much knowledge about so many sports into your brain? I could barely keep up with 4 or 5 I try to follow seriously. I don't know, to be honest, my man. I think it might be something to do with my autism, to be honest with you. I think it blessed me with being able to retain a lot of knowledge. I think that might have something to do with it. I don't really know for sure, but I think it may have something to do with it. And it's made me a bit better at my hobby, so I'm delighted for that. So, yeah, I guess that's probably part of the reason why. But it works. Can't complain. checking the chat. Yeah, Cam's spot on. Cam is spot on in the sense of regarding their teammates and whatnot. Yeah. The only reason Merckx got away with Hamilton and Rosberg as a pairing was because no one could touch them for the 3 years they were teammates at the top level. If there was a decent competitor beneath them, their incidents would have brought somebody else into play. Definitely. But for the first 3 years, it didn't matter because they won everything anyway. Let's see. 9:40. Yeah, about another 5 more minutes, folks. If there's any last minute questions you want to get in, get them in now. So let's say 5 more minutes. So let's say 1:45. Oh, I do want you guys to have some part of your evenings left. There's still 43 of you here. 360 playbacks. It's the most watched Hangout we've ever had. So, you know, thank you all so much. It's been an unbelievable following. So thank you all so much for anyone that stuck around. You guys are fantastic. Utterly fantastic. I love you all. Thank you so much for watching. And listening in and all of that good shit. It's been superb. I've really got to find ways of doing this more frequently because you guys seem to really like it. And I'm hungry, which certainly helps too. I need to put a pizza in the oven. Top 3 seasons of Hybrid Era. 16, 17, 21, I would say so far. I really enjoyed 2016. 14's up there as well, actually. But I'm biased as a Vettel fan, so I'm going to pick 17. Because that was one of his best ever seasons as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, you know, 16 was I enjoyed the Hamilton versus Rosberg war, and having Rosberg finally come out on top, I thought was enjoyable. That season was fascinating to me, and seeing just how far Rosberg was prepared to go to win that title was, for me, fascinating to watch. 17, I'm biased as a Vettel fan, and 21 so far has been incredible. As a season, it's been fascinating so far. This is well on track to being the best turbo hybrid season of the bunch. So of course we're changing the rules next year. Makes sense. You're right, Felix. Lewis has absolutely had an effect on it because he's the only black driver in the sport. Trust me. Back saying, not a question, but just wanted to say you're awesome, Dre. I always enjoy reading your tweets and you bring a great and well thought out perspective. Keep it up. Thank you so much. It's incredibly kind of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was incredibly humbling to know that, you know, you value my opinion like that and you value what I do. I'm incredibly grateful for that. So thank you, Bet. That's incredibly sweet of you. Thank you very much. 5 AM wake up call tomorrow. Oh, bad luck, Katie. Like I got an afternoon shift. I got lucky on that one. I ate a whole tub of ice cream today watching the stream. I can't say I necessarily endorse that, Kelly, but I love the spirit. That's awesome. EPL predictions. I still think Man City will win the title. I think Liverpool need reinforcements. I don't think United are there yet. I think they're still 2 signings away. And I don't think anyone else is going to be a main contender. I would say Man City to win the league, and I think Man City will win by at least 10 points, is what I would say. You heard it here first. I'm a bit leftover Indian watching this. Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm going to go in a minute, you guys. But just to let you know, there'll be a brand new episode of M101. We're playing catch-up right now, but episode 311 will be out tomorrow. So you can look forward to that. It's going to be the first of the Austria races, or I go crazy over the Euros before having my heart ripped out. So that's going to be fun. 310 is out right now. You can check that out on our YouTube channel as well if you haven't already. I know people have mentioned, you know, we are playing catch up a little bit. We're sorry. We're doing the very best we can to turn them around as fast as we can. I promise you we are trying. But thank you for staying with us. I'm very, very much grateful of that. If you are a Patreon backer on Patreon, you can get early access to 311 right now on patreon.com/M101. I'm going to try very, very hard to get more videos out. I've still got a bit of a rough schedule for the next couple of weeks. A lot of 1 till 10 shifts. I can't really work on an awful lot of stuff. But I hope you guys enjoyed the Maverick Vinales video. I would really, in an ideal world, I will try to get one of those out a week, if I can. If there's a intriguing enough topic, I will certainly try as best I can on that one. But I would really like to get more evenings off so I can do more streams like this, because you guys seem to really like them. And the proof in the pudding is in the eating, because my God. Nearly 400 views on this in the space of nearly 3 hours is incredible. We absolutely obliterated the record for the biggest hangout we've ever had. Kelly asking, award show hopefully during the summer break. That's what King has said. Fingers crossed is what I can say. Set up a prayer circle. Key Goins, as a fellow black man, it's always great to have another voice a lot like mine and having a platform and always being authentic. Thanks, Dre. Thank you, man. That's very kind of you. Kelly, and thank you, Dre. It's really cool to discuss with you here and get your opinions on things. Good night. Thanks for the fun stream, man. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, guys. Again, thank you to everyone that's watched and enjoyed. Still 36 of you here, which is incredible. But I'm going to go off and get some dinner. But I will do whatever I can to get try and make this maybe a fortnightly sort of thing. But thank you all so much for watching. Very, very grateful. Enjoy the rest of your evenings. Hopefully I get to talk to you guys soon. You can follow me on Twitter if you haven't already at Harrison101HD. Say hi if you haven't already. You can follow me on there. But thank you all so much for watching. I'll hopefully talk to you guys real soon. And yeah, catch you guys on the flip side. Sayonara. Take care. Have a lovely